Hi everyone, and welcome to another live session from the series How to Get a Professional Job in Australia. And in this live session, I will be talking about some hints for you to improve your performance in your professional interview. But for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida. I'm the founder of www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website that I created last year to share content of value and useful information to help you in your journey to validate your engineering qualification validation here in Australia. And I also share information about workplace health and safety, environmental management, day-to-day of engineering in Australia, and about professional engineering recruitment. And tonight is going to be another live session from the series How to Get a Professional Job in Australia. And if you haven't joined the Telegram group yet, what is Telegram? Telegram is an app, looks like WhatsApp, but I believe, in my opinion, it's much more professional and better than WhatsApp. I'm going to prepare a PDF of this live session today with the hints, and I've been doing the last few sessions a little bit of a game with you guys. I prepare my PDF, and then I usually make a post on Instagram while I am live, and then I ask usually a question, and I want to see some engagement with you guys. And if I have some engagement, I will post the PDF in my Telegram group. So it's important for you to be a member of the Telegram group. Obviously, it's a free group. You don't need to pay anything to be part of the group. If you're not really member of that group yet, I'm going to paste the link in the comments. Just pasting the links in comments in Facebook, and I'm going to paste now the link in YouTube, and those ones on Instagram, you can go after the live session, you can go to the link in my bio, and there is a link there. Once you click, it will open up a button or a few buttons, and one of the button is for you to join Telegram. You need to, if you don't have Telegram yet in your mobile, you need to download the app first. In my Telegram group, I've got about, don't know for sure, but last time I've got 787 members. So it's a lot of people there, and we usually exchange information, and I share videos, audios, and posts in that group. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to start with the content. So the professional interview. And the professional interview certainly is a great challenge for us engineers. Every time that we apply for a position, we will be in a battle for a position in a company. And sometimes in the search for a first job in our area, where we probably do not really have an internal reference. And it's very important to know that even if we get minimum grade in English tests, let's say that you do IELTS or PTE or TOEFL, whatever, and you ended up getting a minimum score, we got to remember that I think, at least myself, but majority of us, we probably are not native English speakers, and English is probably going to be one of our natural barriers. So, because obviously it's our second language. So we need to make sure that we have that in mind every time that we are searching for a job. Also because when we are applying for a position, let's say for an engineer position, there will probably have many native English speakers competing for the same position. So in addition to competing with many other candidates who English is their mother language, There's also the issue of them having perhaps some Australian experience in the industry. And if you're trying to get your first professional job as an engineer here in Australia, you're most probably not going to have an Australian experience as well. But the good news is that you can make few things to improve your chances to impress the panel of interviewers and then be successful in your job hunting and be selected as a successful candidate. It happened to myself. I can say that because it happened to myself back in 2005 when I got my first professional job, and in 2008 when I got my first engineering job. So I didn't really have Australian experience in terms of working as an engineer, and I got an engineer job without having an Australian experience and obviously without being a native English speaker. So it can be done. There are some, you need to learn a little bit how the panel of interviewers, they behave during the interview. Obviously, you need to behave also in a little bit in a special way when you are participating in the interview. And tonight's live session is about me sharing some of the hints that I use every time that I go to a professional interview, and also from a panel member perspective. I don't know if you know, I've mentioned this a few times already, but I recruit lots of engineers and project managers in the company that I work for, and I participate in many dozens, even more than 100 interview panels interviewing engineers. So I know what I want to see from an engineer in terms of their behavior and the way that they perform in a professional interview. Okay, the other hint is that you got to remember that you are there in the interview to sell yourself. So I mentioned that in the last live session. You are there to sell yourself as a professional. So it's really important. And I said this phrase to few friends already and few colleagues at work. If we do not know how to express ourselves in English, it's the same as if we do not know anything. So doesn't really matter how much experience you have in your own country or even here in Australia, but if you cannot express that experience or the results that you got in English very well, for the panel is pretty much the same thing that you didn't have anything or any experience at all. So going back to when you get the phone call, let's say that you are doing whatever you're doing during your day, and then you applied for a job, you sent your CV, you got a phone call asking a few questions from the, let's say, the agency or the recruitment agent, and you had your cover letter, you applied for the job, and then you get a phone call saying, I'm pleased to invite you, a phone call or an email, I'm pleased to invite you to the professional interview of the position we are hiring about mechanical engineer or whatever position you have applied for. So when you get that phone call or an email asking you or letting you know that you've been shortlisted, how many of you, and that's our interaction here a little bit, how many of you got that email and then you thought, oh Jesus, what am I going to do now? It's been a while that I don't really participate in an interview. So put in the comments, did you remember a time when you got that email or a phone call letting you know that you've been shortlisted for a professional interview, And what was your feeling? I will share my feeling with you pretty soon. But if you can put in the comments, one, say yes if you remember that you had a very weird feeling when you got that phone call, letting you know that you've been shortlisted. And if you had that weird feeling, what was that feeling? So I'm curious to know what sort of feeling did you have, and what were the questions that you asked yourself when you got that email or that phone call. Let's see in the comments if I've got anything there. Come on, guys. I know that you guys are hearing. Did you guys remember of a time when you had this phone call or email that you were shortlisted? Yeah, Vinny? Yep, I was worried about how I could express myself. Yeah, thanks, Vinny. That's certainly one of the worries. And especially when the interview is in English. If the interview was in your home country, obviously it was probably in your own language. But I'll tell you a story. After I finished my course in Japan, I went back to Brazil and applied for a job, and I was shortlisted there. And because the company that I applied for, or the position was, the company was part Brazilian and part Japanese, the interviews were actually in English. And so even though the interview could be in your own country, but at that time the interview was in English, and because I put in my resume that at that time I was fluent in Japanese, the Brazilian director actually asked the Japanese director to interview me. And luckily my Japanese was pretty good at that time. Not today, but that time was really good. And I did well in the interview in Japanese as well. And fortunately, I got the job. So when you get that phone call or that email letting you know that you been shortlisted for the professional interview, there are a few questions that usually, well, at least in my case, I thought about it. One, I asked myself, when was my last professional interview? Obviously, you try to get some baseline. You try to remember how was the interview, so you can kind of prepare yourself. The other question that I thought was, what was the feedback I received when I was unsuccessful in that recruitment process? Majority of the recruitment companies, especially if you ask, when they let you know that you've been unsuccessful, you can actually ask for feedback, so you know where you need to improve. So if you were unsuccessful in a recruitment process, if you asked what was the feedback, so it's a good idea for you to try to remember what was the feedback when you were unsuccessful, so obviously you don't repeat the same mistake. Another question that I usually ask myself when I get that phone call, and that's a very simple question, but it's an important question. What clothes will I wear during the interview? Should I need to be very formal? Should I need to be informal or casual? So it's really important as well. The other question I asked myself was, should I focus on the technical or in the management area? So if I'm going to focus on both areas, both technical and management, how much should I focus on technical and how much should I focus on management? So that's another question that I asked myself. And I also asked myself at that time, who will be part of the interview panel? In some cases, when you get the email or a letter or a phone call, letting you know that you've been shortlisted. The recruitment agent perhaps may let you know who is going to be part of the interview panel. If they don't let you know, perhaps you can ask. There's no harm in asking. They may say no, or they may say who's going to be in the panel. And I'll let you know why it's important to know who will be part of the interview panel. Those ones, what do you think? Why do you think it's important to know who will be part of the interview panel? Do you think, well, one, do you think is it important to know who's going to be part of the interview panel? And if you think it's going to be important, why do you think it's important to know who's the interview panel members? And remember that these are just few of the many questions that you probably will pop up immediately after you receive this email or you receive this phone call or SMS. But it will get worse, because once you have the knowledge that you will be part of a professional interview, you will obviously start thinking about how do I get prepared for the professional interview. So some of the hints that I would like to share with you, apart from these ones I already shared with you. The first one, and I'm going to actually show how the PDF is going to be. So as you can see, this is going to be the PDF that I'm going to prepare tonight. And I will post hints to improve your performance during professional interviews in Australia. And as I said, I'm going to post this PDF in my Telegram group. And the PDF will be protected by a password, and I'm going to say to release the password towards the end of this live session. So obviously you stay with me until the end. And but I'm just going to place this PDF in my Telegram once I have some engagement in my Instagram post that I'm going to do during this live session. I'm going to put a picture. I'm actually probably going to do now that we are here. So I'm going to take a picture of this screen and the question. So that's the question there. So what is your biggest challenge when attending a professional interview? So I'm going to put that Instagram post right now. So write in the comments, what is your biggest challenge when attending a professional interview? I'm sharing now. And once I have some answers in my Instagram post, then, well, I'm going to wait until 10 p.m. tonight. And if I have some engagement and some answers to that question, then I'm going to put the PDF in the Telegram group. If I don't have interaction, sorry guys, I'm not going to give this PDF. Obviously, I'm going to give to my students of my mentoring group, but for the overall audience, I'm just going to give you this PDF if I have some interaction. Some of you say, oh, Jerson, why don't you just give us the PDF? Well, I think I'm giving all of this content for free. The minimum that I think you guys can do is to interact with me and help my social profile. So that's the post on Instagram. I just posted now. So if you can like and make some comments and answer that question, what is your biggest challenge when attending a professional interview? So the first hint is have in mind the response to some types of questions. Obviously, if you're applying for a specific position, I hope I'm expecting that you'll be applying for a position that you know what is about, especially if it's an engineering position. But bear in mind that recruitment panel members sometimes, or most of the times, they ask you a few questions that are outside of what the position is going to do. So it is really likely in interviews that the panel will ask questions, a question or two, that will take you by surprise. So you need to be prepared for those type of questions. And when you hesitate to answer it, you will demonstrate a weakness, and this may mean that the job may not be yours. So you need to start thinking about some answers already for some of those questions. And answering those questions very well demonstrates that you have good self-awareness. So very important, and I mentioned that in the last live session, that nowadays companies, they are not just hiring because of your technical expertise and your technical knowledge, but they also hiring because of your ability to work in a team, your self-awareness, your positive attitude, and so on. And some of the examples of these questions that's probably going to be good for you to start thinking about is, so it's going to be here, is tell me a little bit about you. So very simple question. They could answer these questions in the beginning or towards the end, but have a think about. This is the question. Tell me a little bit about you. And obviously they don't want to know, you can say what you do in your private time, etc., etc. But when they ask this question, tell me a little bit about you, it's about you in a professional environment. How do you go about your responsibilities, working in a team, working in a new environment, working in obviously a new company overseas? How do you handle pressure? How do you handle stress, etc., etc.? So what do you do in your, it's important to say what you do in your free time as well, your hobbies, but you need to concentrate. What do you do about, well, you got to tell about you in a work environment mainly. The other question, or the example that a question that they could ask you, it could be, why should I hire you? So that's another very good question that they might ask you towards the end. So if they are talking about 5 or 6 selection criteria or competencies, they're probably going to ask you 5 or 6 questions specific about those selection criteria. And then towards the end, when you finish answering all of those questions, they could ask you, why should I hire you? And the other question that usually they ask, and it can get you by surprise, is what are your weaknesses? So very simple question, but a very powerful question. And for God's sake, don't reply that you are a perfectionist. 99.9% of candidates, every time that they get asked about why you, I'm just trying to get back, what is your weaknesses, people say, sorry, but my weakness is because I'm perfectionist, I want everything done 100%, etc., etc. So when you answer that, panel members, they straight away know that it's BS. So please don't answer that. All right, I'm going to just get that in the PDF, and so then you can see how the PDF is coming. So that's the first section of the tip. These are the examples of the questions there. And then the other hint is when you are asked questions about obviously the selection criteria or key competencies, answer the questions with real examples. They want to know, what have you done? What were the results that you've achieved? So that's certainly a very important point for you to understand. So when the panel of interviewers, they ask a particular question, let's say that they ask a question about project management, and the question could be, tell the panel an example of a project that you delivered when you had to face a technical engineering problem, and what did you do, how did you go about it, and what was the result that you achieved. So as you can see, the question itself is already very self-explanatory. They're asking an example. They're asking the results that you achieved. They're asking a real project that you delivered. So try to explore the answer with the following structure. First, give the background of the project or the problem and say a real good example. Answer with a real example. And then describe the problem-solving methodology that you used. List then 2 or 3 options of solutions that you have elaborated, and be sure that you put the pros and cons of each of those options there. And then you explain the reasons why you chose a particular solution. And then you describe the results obtained and the benefits achieved. And in the end, report the reasons why your role was instrumental in achieving the goals and results. So it's pretty much this structure when you're answering how to answer the question, giving a real example, is pretty much describing your problem resolution methodology. So you give the background, the project or the problem, and then you describe the problem-solving methodology that you used. You list the 2 or 3 options that you came up with, and with the pros and cons of each option. And then you explain why you chose the solution that you implemented, and then the results achieved and the benefits achieved. And obviously, why was important what was that you did that was important to achieve those results. So if you structure the answer in this line of thought, obviously the interview panel will appreciate of the structure. The interview panel members will probably appreciate if you use technical terms, standards, and technical specifications and quality tools that you used to resolve that problem and to deliver that project there. So really important. I'm going to get that in the PDF, and then I'll show you how the PDF is getting there. All right, so that is how is in the PDF. So the PDF is that bit. Yeah, answer the questions with your examples, and that's the pretty much the structure of how you behave and how you answer the questions when you're asked about particular selection criteria. Okay, I'm going to have a look at how if any, is there any question on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube? And if you have a particular question, just put in the comments, and I will be answering that. So in Facebook, Eve was saying that when she got a phone call, she was absolutely terrified. Yeah, I shared this feeling, Eve, because as much as we would like to get that phone call and that email that we've been shortlisted, but then we enter in panic mode usually. So I'll check in YouTube. Any questions? No. Instagram. Yeah, welcome Ricardo. Yeah, direct from Spain. Happy New Year to you. Yeah, Ricardo is one of my students. Well, was one of my students of my mentoring program, Validation Formula, and thanks for the kind words, Ricardo. He was approved or validated as a production engineer here in Australia, and very happy for you. And hopefully you can get back to Australia soon and get a professional job here in Australia, Ricardo, and I'll help you in whatever I can. All right, so the PDF is coming good. So don't forget that I'm going to release this PDF just if I have some comments in my picture that I put in Instagram. What is your biggest challenge when attending a professional interview? So you know how the PDF is coming, and obviously for my students, I'm going to put in my VIP group, regardless of the engagement. So I talk about a little bit about the professional interview, and then usually the questions that we ask ourselves when we get that phone call there. And the first hint to have in mind the response to some types of questions, and then I put in there some of those questions there. And then you got to answer the questions with real examples. So I put a little bit of the structure, how you should really be answering those questions in a professional interview. And then the last hint for tonight, it is, where's my notes? Yes, to demonstrate that you are the solution for the pains of the work opportunity. Just remember that when a company, just a second guys, I'm itching my nose. Sorry for that. Gotta remember that when a company, they are hiring or they're recruiting somebody, it's because for some whatever reason, the company has a pain. The company has a problem. The company has a project that they need to deliver, to solve, or a pain that they need to go away. And you need to remember that you need to be the medicine for that pain. So if you are not the right medicine for that pain, the company is not going to hire you. So you gotta always remember, the company is recruiting somebody because they have a pain, and you are the medicine, the right medicine to that pain. But first of all, you need to try to identify what pain or pains the company is trying to solve by recruiting this job vacancy. So remember that when I spoke about the CV and the cover letter, that you should do a research about the company, a research about the projects, and perhaps a research of the panel members if you know them. So the research that you have done during the CV and the cover letter, will certainly help to understand these pains. And you gotta read very carefully the position description. A lot of people, they don't read the position description or the job advertisement. When they advertise a position and they include the position description, that document will have a lot of the hints about the pain or pains that the company is trying to get rid of. So candidates, usually they don't, they just see the title, mechanical engineer, etc. And they don't really look with the details. And once you know what are the pain or pains, and with the knowledge of the pains, you can then come to the interview and address the solutions of those pains in your answers. But be careful not to appear to be the salvation of the planet. So you got to be down to earth and give clear examples of experiences where you have resolved those pains already, proving competence and activating one of the mental triggers. In this case, is going to be the trigger of the proof. So if you identify what are the pains, and if when you're answering the questions, you give real examples where you have resolved those pains in your previous job, the company is going to be impressed with obviously with your capacity and your competency to resolve those pains. So that's a hint that a lot of candidates, they don't really think about, because candidates usually they think about just the normal things. And in a very competitive market, you got to remember that in a very competitive market, majority of the candidates will be answering the same things. So for you to be chosen, the selected candidate to be recruited, you need to be different. And how you become different? In this case, if you address pains, if you address things that others, they probably not going to address, this is going to be your point of difference. So it's really important for you to think about, how can I be different? How can I be a highlight? How can I stand out from the crowd? Because I can assure you, when a company, they advertise a position, they will have lots and lots of candidates, not just 10, 20. They will have 30, 40, 50, 60 candidates. And for you to stand out, you need to be different. And one important thing is certainly, and I mentioned that in the last live session, for you to be validated as an engineer here in Australia. This can be your point of difference, because in a competitive market, if you are not validated, you're probably not going to be shortlisted, because there will be lots of engineers that are already validated. And for those ones interested to be validated, towards the end of this month, probably end of month or early February, I'm going to promote another free workshop, engineering qualification validation, where in just 1 week, I'm going to teach you how you can start your validation process. And it's a free workshop. I'm going to put the link in the comments in Facebook and YouTube as well. Those on Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio, and there is, once you click on that link, I think I'm going to show you guys here, because sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. So when you go to my bio, you need to go to this link here. It says Linktree, Gerson Ida. So when you click that, it will open up a box with few links. The first two links are links that you can ask for my free ebook in Portuguese or English. And then the third button is for you to register to the engineering qualification validation free workshop. And the other button is for you to join the Telegram group, where I'm going to place the PDF if I have some engagement in my Instagram post. So once you click to register, there, it will open up the registration page, and it's me there. And then you just need to put your name and your email. And there are just a few things that I'm asking you: if you're Brazilian, if you live in Brazil, or live in Australia, or live in anywhere else. And then there's the submit button there. Once you submit, I'm going to send you a confirmation email. And there's a button to confirm your registration. If you don't really confirm the registration, your registration is not going to be finalized. So very important that once you submit your registration to the free workshop, you will receive an email, and the email can go to your inbox or can go to your junk mail. So please check your junk mail box, because if you don't confirm, if you don't click on that button to confirm your registration is not going to be confirmed. All right. So I'm just going to show you how the PDF is taking shape. Where's that? Yeah, it's coming good, I think. So yeah, that's a PDF that I'm going to do. So the professional interview. The first hint: have in mind the response to some types of questions. Answer the questions with real examples. And demonstrate that you are the solution for the pains of the work opportunity. And in conclusion, certainly the interview can be daunting for many candidates. And we often forget that the people in the selection panel are people like us. I've been part of many, more than 100 interview panels. And, you know, the interview panel members, they are people like you. We just want to know what is your expertise, what is the value that you can add to the company, how can you be the solution to our pains, and to know a little bit about you. So you don't need to be very nervous, obviously. Easy to say, but difficult to do. Every time that I go to an interview, I am nervous, but if you prepare yourself very well, if you know really in depth what you're going to talk about, if you prepare yourself with those sort of questions, it certainly can help you to perform very well in your interviews. So again, research about the company, research about the projects that the company is delivering, be ready for the interview, know how to analyze the job opportunity. When you arrive at the interview, observe, especially if the interview is at the company, observe how the company is set up, observe the reception, observe how people they work, observe how people they interact, observe how the receptionists talk to you, observe the environment of the company, observe perhaps if the mission or the vision is written on the walls of the company. You can learn a lot about those observations, especially because you're probably going to wait 5 or 10 minutes ask where the toilet is, and then you go to the toilet, you wash your face, or obviously if you have makeup, you're not, but it's an excuse to go to the toilet, and then you can, while you're walking, you can observe people, you can observe the workplace, and that information can give you a little bit of insight in how about the culture of the company. So all of those things are things that majority of candidates, they usually don't do. So I hope that these tips have been helpful, and those tips can assist you in your journey to get your professional job here in Australia. If you have other comments, if you have other questions, please put in the comments. I'm going to post this video or the replay video in YouTube and Facebook. If you ended up having other questions, you can always put in the comments there. I'm just going to check if I have any question. No questions on Facebook. YouTube, no questions there, and no questions on Instagram as well. All right, so thank you very much, guys, and I hope you have enjoyed the live session, and I hope to see you next Sunday, the 10th of January. I hope you have a very happy new year, that 2021 brings you a lot of peace, a lot of health, a lot of success, and a lot of joy in your engineering journey here in Australia. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.